reInvent. How are you guys doing? Amazing. That's a great answer.
After lunch, too.
I have spoken at a conference before, and it's always amazing to me how different it is every time. I've been doing this for a long time, different kinds of companies, and each has its own flavor and its own flair. But one of the things that I really love about AWS is the closeness that we all get to have. And I think we have a lot of very direct interactions and communications. And so one of the reasons that I like coming to reInvent, it's one of my favorite weeks, is because I get to talk to each and every person individually and hear their stories and get deep with them. And I wish the same for you. I hope you're having a similar kind of a time. Would you advance our slide one so we can talk about what we're going to talk about? So today we're going to talk about generative BI capabilities that are coming to Amazon Q in QuickSight. And do we have some technical problems over here? Yeah, okay, we're making an adjustment. And my name is Zach. I lead product for AI and ML at QuickSight. And I've been building software professionally for 24 years. Companies like Salesforce, Tableau, Microsoft, startup work. And I love this work because I believe that data has this kind of almost magical power to bring us to see things together. And that if we can see the same thing, then we can have a discussion about it. Maybe we can make the world just a little bit better place. And I am very excited to be joined on this stage today with a couple of wonderful customers, very data-minded people. Who would you like to say hello, Ed?
Sure. Hey, everyone. My name is Ed. I work at GoDaddy in analytics, and I've been around software for a similar time period and really have grown to appreciate also the value of really how data does bring us together and really have us have really interesting conversations with it. So I'm looking forward to having a chat with you today.
Great. And my name's Emily Arevalo. I am an analytics manager for Huron's Care Insights team. I have a background in math and secondary education, and passionate about helping people solve their problems using data and analytics and QuickSight. So.
You're probably going to teach us some today.
Yes.
Yeah. All right, you two. Thanks so much for coming out today. We're going to hear more from these two in a little bit. So we've got all of this data, right? Who has been gathering data? Yes? Okay, some of us have data. Okay, and it's potentially very powerful, right? Like we've got all of these ideas about what we can do with the data, but it doesn't always turn out to be as effective as we want it to be. And so many of the customers that I talk to say, it's not getting me the decision input that I wanted. And so some question for you. What do you think it is that prevents data-driven decision making, given that we just have these piles of data? Anybody have an idea? Sorry? Socialization. Yeah, people don't know about the data or they don't believe in the data. Yeah. Yes? Lack of good metadata. People don't understand it. Like the metadata isn't there. Yes? Oh, I love that one. Not framing the question in a way that the data can answer it, meaning like they have a business problem they're trying to solve, and then maybe like the data doesn't exist or, isn't it yet in the right form? Yes? Was there another one? Politics. Yes. Well, there are politics. Yes, one more. Not knowing actionable next steps. Okay, so I've got all of this data here. There's some finding, but what am I going to do with it? That's great. I love that. So Gartner, I think a more general sense, says that data skills and staff shortage is the #1 impediment for organizations' success. And they say, by the way, a lot of the problem is that this time is not being used well. So 68% of it, is just kind of either undifferentiated work or things that analysts are doing. And then, for business users, well, 75% of the time, they don't have the confidence, they don't understand the data, don't believe it's answering their question, they don't know how to use it. So I look at this and I actually see instead a software problem. Can the software tools make this easier? And so that's why we've created Amazon QuickSight. QuickSight is Amazon's general purpose BI service, and it works with any kind of data. It includes dashboarding capabilities, reporting, all of the things that you would want out of a typical BI service. And as you would expect from Amazon, it scales to any performance level. So you don't really have to think about or manage performance characteristics. It's augmented, and this, of course, is my area, my passion, with AI through and through. And this, I think, makes it a little bit different from other products I've worked on at other companies. And then also, it ends up being pretty efficacious. And so I think with a lot of Amazon services, you pay for what you use kind of thing. There's nothing that you're pre-buying, licenses to manage or all of that stuff. You just put users in, you take users out. So a lot of people using it today. Some great customers on this list that I've actually had additional conversations with this week who are floating around. You may be able to talk to directly. The dashboarding capabilities are pretty robust and complete. Data visualization, interactivity, all of the sort of things that you would know and you would expect from a dashboarding platform. And then a lot of people, what they're doing is they're actually building applications. And so I was talking to some folks just a minute ago, a little bit earlier, that are creating applications, analytical applications, or have data that they want to make available as a service to other people. And that is, I would say, actually a bigger part of what people are doing with QuickSight, even than just the core analytics experiences inside their organizations. Last year at reInvent, we announced that we have paginated reports. So these are great for people who have been, for many years working on a sort of a legacy system on-prem. They were looking for a cloud solution. Now it's an easy way to put all your BI in one service in order to sort of be able to reuse all the data and sort of business logic that you've encoded. So my area in AI, one of our key capabilities is what we've been calling QuickSight Q. And QuickSight Q was launched originally back in 2020. And so QuickSight Q enables business users to ask and answer questions of data. And last year at reInvent, we announced that we were bringing new natural language capabilities for business users who are not technical to be able to do some more advanced things. So they can do things like get a forecast, ask a why question. Why were sales down in February of 2023, and automatically get an analytical response. So Q's in the product. All of this sort of AI revolution is happening around us. I mean, what a year. How many of you have active AI initiatives in one form or another? Yes? Okay, that's like 75% of the room. That's amazing. And when I took this job, I was thinking, all right, are we, this natural language thing it's been really hard, and are we going to make the run at it? And so I had this conversation with the folks, and I said, what makes us believe, can we get there? In the end, what brought me was this belief based on our approach, the background, the things that we had that we could bring to bear, that we could actually build something that would solve this natural language problem, making it easy for people, which has been super challenging. And along comes these sort of generative, large language, foundational models, and they bring a whole new tint to it. So now we've got our inbuilt models in QuickSight that know how to do language understanding, and they know how to map your intents onto your data. We've got forecasts and outlier detection and other analytical capabilities inbuilt to QuickSight that we can leverage, and we've got these new large language models. So the question is, what can we do with all of this stuff? These are AIs. Don't they look cute? They look helpful. The question is, though, what can they really do? So it turns out, after examining these things, I came to the conclusion that these are really best for assisting our work at this time. So these large language models are effectively under the covers, predictors. They forward predict what text is going to be. And we know that they're trained on a variety of very broad world information. So they have a lot of conceptual ideas that they can get into, and they have a lot of power that they can bring to bear in terms of showing us new things, new ideas that we haven't thought about. So they can summarize information for us. They can do that kind of work. They can sort of teach us specific skills in specific areas where we're not an expert. And then they can do this almost magical sort of set of generalization. So they can say, oh, I think this may be going on based on what's happening. And that's actually fascinating because it can bring us some new ideas. However, they are not the perfect solution for every problem. So we do not want to use them to replace human judgment. Human judgment is still the primary key for making decisions. We do not really want them doing math at this point. That's an evolving space. We know there's a lot of good sort of technology that's coming in this area, but at this point, there are better ways to do math. There are systems like QuickSight that already produce statistics and sort of BI analytics reliably that, for example, are things that you can sort of depend on. There's also this sort of well-defined task. So if you have a machine-learned model that does forecast, that you've trained, that is probably going to be better at forecasting than a large language model. You can ask them to forecast, but they aren't trained as specifically. And just like a person who's gone to school for a specific kind of degree program, they're going to be better at that task. And then finally, there is a step of verification. So before we send things out into the world, we want to be sure that they're true, or at least to our human judgment. So we've announced Amazon Q with generative BI capabilities. So Amazon Q is the umbrella assistant offered by AWS that can help you to complete work in all different parts of your AWS experience. And in QuickSight, specifically, it provides an AI-accelerated dashboard authoring experience that helps business analysts build dashboards faster. It provides AI answers to questions of data on demand for business users to be able to get the insights they need to drive a decision. And then it has the ability to do, and I think this is really interesting, I hope you do too when you see it, some storytelling. So the AI can actually assist business users in examining their data and producing stories that are helpful then to explain to other people what might be going on in order to drive a decision. So the authoring experience has three parts. You can build visuals, you can build calculations, and then you can refine the visuals in order to achieve a precise outcome. The AI answers to questions of data on demand comes in two parts of the experience. So first, you can ask Q to summarize your dashboards, and it will automatically extract key insights from the dashboards and make them easy to see. Second, there is an enhanced Q&A experience. We've rethought how Q&A can be, and we've created something that solves common business user problems by suggesting questions and providing a what's new experience that lets them know kind of what data they can ask about to make that obvious. A multi-visual answer, which breaks down all of their data to give context and then explains with narratives what's going on in the data so that they can confidently understand the data. And then finally, we support vague questions. And these are the types of questions that business users frequently ask. And how many or how much or why kinds of questions. where many of the details are missing that would be required in order to formulate something as complicated as a SQL query, which many of us can write, but many of them don't know about. And just in case we interpreted it wrong, we also offer alternatives. So we tell them, hey, there could be multiple parts of your data that match to what you're asking for. For stories, their first is the story capability. So story is a brand new kind of thing we're bringing to QuickSight. It is not a dashboard. It is not a report. It's more like a document or slides. And so you can build these stories using the AI. It can introspect on your real, actual data. It can build narratives. It can explain what's in the data. And it can draw conclusions and make suggestions. Then you can use the AI to refine the content that you've created. And then because these stories live within your BI service, they participate in your existing governance model. All right, so let's take a look at what this looks like. I have a little video demo here. Switch over to demo. OK, so for the purposes of this demo, we're going to look at some sales data. Let's pretend for a moment that we are a business analyst who's building a sales dashboard in order to sort of analyze how some of our selling is going. So this is QuickSight analysis. On the left, you've got some fields and field lists. And then here in the middle is just a canvas where you do your analysis. So right at the top, there's a new entry point to build a visual. So I can ask Q. And here I just describe in natural language what I want. So sales by city and product as a map. And I can add it right to the canvas. You can see our sales are kind of distributed. That's great. Let's take a look at the forecast for profit. This is flat, so not so great. I want to examine that a little bit more. So I'm going to create a calculation. This is the second capability. I can say profit ratio. And Q automatically creates calculation in QuickSight's expression language. And then I can use that calculation in a visual, and I can mash it up with other data. So I could say, show it with sales. And hey, you know what, make it a scatter so that I can get a distribution. And I can see here now with the scatter, some of our highly profitable products are not our best-selling products. So that's kind of a problem. So then I can ask a question. Well, hey, what products are worth the most? So you can see here, this is a vague question. And it answered it anyway. And it says, we interpreted this as total profit by product. But did you mean total sales by product, profit ratio by product? So this is the ability to match those other intents that you may have. Now let's look at the third capability. So I can now edit these visuals to get a precise experience. So I'll say change this to a table, add region, color profit from red to green, which creates a conditional format. So there it is. I've created this dashboard in front of your eyes pretty rapidly using these three capabilities. So now we're going to flip over to see the business user experience. So in the upper right-hand corner, there is a new Q build option. And so a business user now looking at this dashboard, let's say in this case it's a sales leader who's curious about how they can improve sales, they can ask for a summary. What's actually going on with our sales? And they can see right away the products that are sales leaders are not the same as the products that are profitable. So then how can I learn more about this? If I'm curious, I can open this Q&A experience and quickly see different kinds of data and questions I can ask. And I can ask a question in my own language. Tell me about sales and profit for Contact Matcher, our most highest selling product in APJ. And here you'll see this multi-visual experience where I've broken down the answer into multiple different explanatory visuals. And here I'm also showing in the narrative the link between the actual text. So the AI has generated this text and it's using actual values from my data, but where did they come from? Why? How do I know? How can I be sure? How can I understand? You can see that it's highlighting here this total sales and total profit by day visual. That's the source of the fact that I've currently hovered. Okay, so we've got a profitability problem with our top-selling product in APJ, but what are our worst performing regions? Like, how bad is it really in APJ? So I asked this vague question, and you can see here, it says, okay, well, by sales, this is what's going on. But you and I know, because we've been talking about this, that what I care about right now is profitability. Like, I want to look at profitability, and we saw that Contact Matcher has a profitability problem. But not to worry. On the left-hand side, in the did you means, you can see clearly that total profit is one of the question alternatives being offered. And by clicking it, I can quickly see, sure enough, APJ has got the worst profit, a serious profitability problem, so I'm going to have to dig in. I want to now share these findings. So I want other people to know what I found out, and I want to go deeper. I want to explain a little bit about what can be done about this business problem. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a story. So here I'll say, Q, build a data story for me. I'll choose page format, and I just describe, again, using natural language, what I want the story to be about. So build a story explaining profitability trends, give ideas about how sales managers can increase profitability in their regions. Then I select some of the data that I want Q to consider. And this is important because these are pre-modeled facts. Q will create a story in multiple parts, examining the data, using visuals with text narratives explaining what's in the data, as well as specific statistics. You could see it says, hey, the top 3 products are 70% of sales. But certain products are maybe an opportunity for us to invest. They're underperformers. So why don't you spend time looking at those? If I want to include additional data, that's easy to do. I can grab some effectiveness data from my marketing channels and bring it right into the story. And I can use the AI to make formatting edits. So I can say, hey, make this into bullets. It's easy to then customize the story, have it sort of themed for a nice appearance. And then I can look top to bottom at my final story state before I choose to share it out to Shannon, who did Swami's keynote today, if any of you saw that. And then in this way, I can begin to inform a discussion and then try to get to some decisions about what we're really going to do. So that's the demo. I'm going to switch over now. I'd like to invite Ed up to the stage. Ed, are you ready? Oh, no. Have I done something wrong?
Nope, you're all good.
All right, I'm going to switch back over to the program. Should be good to go.
All right, thank you, Zach.
Yeah.
All right, thanks, everyone. All right, well, that's a tough act to follow. I'll do my best. All right, push button. Maybe. Push button. All right. Okay, so I wanted to tell a personal story real quick and also explain why I have this in my hand. Folks might know what this is. Folks at work know that I'm a kind of a pickleball fanatic. It's sort of, in the past couple of years, sort of changed the way I viewed sports at this age and other things. And similarly, when I sort of had picked up GenBI just in the past couple of months, it really has sort of transformed the way I think about our role in data analytics. And also, really I was kind of skeptical in the beginning, also about this thing and also about GenBI, but I've sort of grown to actually, realize that there are some benefits, and we've just started that journey. So with that, I'll set that aside before I hurt somebody. But I'll give a quick intro to myself. My name's Ed. I lead some data analytics teams at GoDaddy. My colleague Mayur helped me put together a story today. And I wanted to have a little bit of background and context for QuickSight at GoDaddy. So raise your hand, I guess, real quick, if you guys have heard of GoDaddy and know that we're not only a domains website company. Ooh, a little bit fewer than I thought. Okay, great. We'll learn something together. So what I'm showing here is a little bit of a kind of a snapshot of some numbers of the business. And while everyone recognizes us as a player in domain names, the impact that we have is far beyond that. So we have over 20 million what we call everyday entrepreneurs. These are your local florists, your pickleball paddle manufacturers, your favorites craft vendors, and we support, of course, the 84 plus million domains that they register. But beyond that, there's also this commerce business, right? So there's this thing called gross merchandise value of about 33 billion, which is the value of goods and services transacted, right, by our customers on our platforms. So our commitment goes just beyond, beyond domains, but to also websites and commerce. We even have a payments business with branded hardware, right? So really, our strategy at GoDaddy is kind of simple, and it's really underpinned by data, and that's sort of what is, I think, interesting for us here. And so we aim to, champion every single entrepreneur, so every single sort of micro-segment, and offering them the guidance they need and provide data to help our customers succeed. And we're not just providing those as sort of tools, but really creating kind of an ecosystem where they can thrive. And so with that, our vision is really to see a world where the entrepreneur really is at the center of the global economy, right? And so we think of the entrepreneur and the data surrounding their journey as sort of a wheel. And if you can think about, kind of all the complex data, if any of you have small businesses and what that looks like, you can kind of maybe relate to that. So from establishing strong digital identity with essentials like domains and logos to online ubiquitous presence with hosting websites, you might know about those things. But what you might not know is there's also an area that we're diving deep into, which is called connected commerce. And it's tapping into the bustling world of marketplaces, whether it's bleeding into the digital and the physical with online, offline payments, and just streamlining payments in general. And so we're really trying to be in every stride of the entrepreneurial journey. And so you can imagine, if you're running a business like that, all of the complex permutations of the data being produced in each step of the way. And that's really the true immense problem that we are trying to tackle. So data's great, but it's really insights, right, that supports our customer success, right? And so we do that through many things, including our care guides. And so we took a look and we asked our analytics community about the pain points and how do you reduce the time to insights, let's say, delivered through care or any of our other analytics teams. And so the survey came out with a few answers around various levels of kind of time that it would take, long polls, if you will, of bringing time to insights down, right? And so you can see that exploring the data might be a day or so, preparing the data might actually take a week or so, visualizing it and preparing an interesting story, which we'll talk about, might take about a week, maybe validating is a little bit shorter, and then deploying might take another week, right? So you can see sort of that's a lot of time being spent in trying to bring an insight, right, to our business. Meanwhile, as you guys probably can relate to, there's a bunch of changes. People are slicing the data slightly differently. One business unit is saying, hey, can you do this to it? And meanwhile, there's adding fields and these kind of things, multiple round trips, right? You probably have experienced this in your analytics, is multiple round trips of changing the slice or the view of the data. And so with that in mind, what has been sort of our data journey, or how have we evolved the platform to sort of try to address that? So starting in kind of the early 2000s, we, like many of you, we started with relational databases built largely on the Microsoft stack. And then moving into 2011, we embraced massively parallel processing, and then also incorporated Teradata, of course, and then actually Alation and data governance quite early, and then Tableau for visualization. And then the period from about 2013 to 2022, about the past 10 years, we embraced, of course, big data and things like Pig, Hive, even Redshift, Hadoop, and Spark, were there, right? And then we just last year moved really to the modernized AWS cloud, as many of you are, and really introducing things like Data Lake, QuickSight, and Athena, and those things. And so now what our challenge is really to say, how do we, again, reduce that time to insight with these new capabilities while not sacrificing things like governance and the things that we like to see in the correctness of data and the usage of it. So going back to those things we found out about time to insights, what we're hoping to see and what we're beginning to see with AWS Stack is how we're revolutionizing that story for us. Starting with exploring the data, using things like Data Brew and preparing the data with Glue Studio and Data Brew, providing sort of clean and organized data sets for folks to use. And really what we'll talk about here in a second is the building of our visualizations and really the insight stories, right? For me, it's been just more fun and more engaging with people to use QuickSight and Q combined with what you'll see in Generative BI. And lastly, of course, deploying to production we hope is going to be more seamless and with some process automation, reducing some of those deployment times. So in essence, we're hoping that the AWS stack sort of end-to-end sort of helps us not only accelerate insights, but keeps good things like governance in place. So before I dive in, let me just kind of mention to you what we think are the profound impacts that we'll hope to see from enhancing our visualization strategy with QuickSight. So, firstly, we're hoping that we can make a really game-changing reduction in the number of ad hoc reports. Remember all those changes I was mentioning? We're hoping to eliminate some of those with some of the features, Zach showed. We see a lot of this happening in our organization. You may have seen the same. But the other is, really close to heart is we do a lot of, I'll say, manual anomaly detection of our business performance data, right? Every single stakeholder, all the way up to the CEO, literally on a daily basis, wants to see, what is behind the anomalies in our performance in the business, right? And there's some really neat insights, capabilities that the tool has to be able to help us there. I just had someone on my team yesterday call me and tell me about when can we do this. So I'm going to try to walk you through some screenshots, not quite as exciting as Zach's video. I had to do some neat things with the data to be able to show this to you, but I wanted to show you a little bit of sort of 3 personas that we see in our organization using some of these features. So first, in the analysis view, we have a care analyst who is preparing a dashboard which breaks down what we call interaction. And these are these moments when a care guide is communicating with a customer through an interaction, what we call platforms such as voice, chat, or messaging. And one of the typical questions is, right, which of these platforms is performing the best, right, from a revenue perspective? And this is usually when a customer is buying a new product or renewing a subscription or a product when they're on the phone or interacting somehow with one of our care guides. And of course, you won't see this in the video, but you'll see this kind of on the side there, how easily it is to add elements to this simply by using natural language and then to sort of add that. So we've done things like use calculated fields and some of the capabilities Zach just showed to add new and recurring revenue, slicing by country, some trends, and a couple of Sankey diagrams down below. And really adding the visuals is really simple, as we've just seen, is as simple as just saying something like, count of interaction ID by platform per month, and then really taking then a look at how QuickSight interpreted that, and then reviewing that and essentially making sure that that was what you wanted in your analysis, right? So in some ways, it's kind of another version of Gen AI sort of prompt engineering, if you will, from a visualization side, and then doing all the tuning you might need to do with anything else in the visualization that's appropriate. So second, in the same view of the analysis, you have sort of the reader view or the business stakeholder. This person is consuming what was just done, but what was interesting here is, this executive summary feature was enabled by the analyst in the previous view, and so we're sort of able to get this view, of course, which I'm blurring out a bunch of key insights on, but essentially you're able to sort of see quickly where should I dig in, right? How many times have you looked at a dashboard and say like, what am I looking at? What should I do about this? What's next, right? And so there are some ways to sort of get to that more quickly that we see. And by doing this person can go in and pin this, copy it, and kind of share it out. And typically for us, that might be a product manager or some other leader in the company who has a little more context around the data in terms of what investments we might make. The data might show that one platform is performing better than the other in revenue or something else, but there's something else underneath that maybe is not shown in the data that person has to sort of give some insight into. So finally, this person looks at it and says, well, the one unanswered question that they thought was, well, this is great from a revenue perspective, but from the customer's outcome, I'm really not seeing everything. I'm not seeing the whole picture. And so this person says, well, let me go out and add something else, in this case, maybe Net Promoter Score. And without having to do another round trip with the analyst team, they can go ahead and ask a natural language question or put in a natural language phrase like average NPS score by platform without unattributed orders, so even with a neat filter in there, and then get something out which is helpful for her further analysis. So finally, the third and final persona is someone that is preparing all of this for, let's say, a business review, right? And so what we were seeing is in the demo, of course, is someone that's interested in taking the insights from her team and putting it all together into a story, and then really, as I was saying before, sort of having a conversation with everyone, interacting with this, both from a quantitative, sort of analysis kind of perspective, but also with sort of the generated kind of creativity from LLMs, right? So you sort of see one from a strategy perspective. It's not always just about the numbers. It's always about, sort of creative ideas and those things. And you can sort of have that sort of assistance, in this storytelling feature. And we're really anxious to see how that pans out for us. So you can see here, there's an insight that it might pop out that we might not have thought about in terms of a certain channel that might be, driving better spending. And also there might be other suggestions around what to do that might be, again, more creative in terms of experimentation or things that we might be doing, but there might be other ideas that are coming out of this kind of storytelling feature. So, oops, I already got. Anyway, that's all I have. I'm really anxious to bring up Emily up here and let you guys know that we've just started the journey. From someone like Emily who's been on the journey with QuickSight a little bit longer. We're looking forward to learning more from her, as well as any of you that have been on this journey with QuickSight. And I'll hand it off to Emily.
Thanks. Awesome. Thanks, Ed and Zach. Again, my name's Emily Arevalo, and I'm with Huron. For those of you who don't know who Huron is, we are a consulting group out of Chicago, Illinois, but with lots of other offices throughout the US and internationally a little bit as well. We have almost 5,000 employees and serve over 2,000 different organizations every year. Those span lots of different industries, but today we're going to focus on our healthcare industry, which is where me and my team sits. So specifically, I work on the Huron Intelligence team that has one of our data sets is a commercial and Medicare claims data set. It has de-identified patient information, so I can't tell it's me, Emily, in the data set, but I can follow the patient's lifespan throughout the course of the data. So I can see what I did back in 2018 all the way to yesterday when I saw my doctor. It has over 290 million patients in it for over 6.2 million doctors, physician assistants, nurse practitioners, any type of provider you would see for a healthcare need. It spans the care continuum, which is important. When we'll get into the demo, I have some live data we can share. But spanning the care continuum, we can see EMS and urgent care visits to an inpatient hospital stay for a knee joint, all the way to rehabilitation or skilled nursing facilities or hospice. So you're probably thinking, what are you doing with this? What types of questions can you answer? And the one we're going to focus on today is the out-migration patterns of patients. So little personal story, when I moved last year with my toddler, I called up my local provider and said, hey, I'd like to get him in for his pediatrician visit. He was 9 months old, so if any of you have kids, you're getting 7-8 visits in that first year. They told me, great, we'll see you in 11 months. And I said, he needs 3 visits in that time. So those are the types of questions we're trying to solve and answer and look at where are those access issues occurring. Is it happening for pediatricians? Is it happening for a specialty cardio visit that patients are driving 3 hours for? Trying to narrow down, because that answer is different in every single market and for every single hospital. So that's one way we're using the data, and I'll show a sample of that in a bit. But where are we with our QuickSight adoption? So like Ed said, we have been using QuickSight for a little over 4 years, a little under 4 years now. Initially, it started as some very ad hoc reports, just throwing something in a visual. So my team wanting to have something in a dashboard instead of having several different pivot tables in an Excel file. It quickly expanded to subscription reports when we got a client who really liked what we were doing and wanted it on a regular basis, which then expanded into embedded, where we're focusing today, and taking some of those very standardized visualizations that we've done over and over again and putting them inside of a software product. So you can imagine that we have lots of different users who have lots of different needs and use cases, from authors to readers to executive business users, so QuickSight has been helpful for that. How it has helped our team specifically was that taking data from super custom of everything is different and locked in a spreadsheet, and there's multiple different sources of truth, and transforming it into integrated data experiences. So that being those embedded reports, or also just those subscription reports, or sample visuals that look about the same for every project, and we can tell our internal consumers kind of what they can expect when they buy data from our team. Very, very, very simple data pipeline for what this looks like for us is on the bottom there, but we'll query data from multiple sources, including Redshift, and store it in an S3 bucket, use a glue crawler, put it in Athena, put it into QuickSight. You'll notice, though, on the far right, that the insights are still getting kind of stuck in PowerPoint. We get to that point where we have a dashboard, a reader, and a business user can look at it and understand it, but at the end of the day, that chief strategy officer of the hospital just wants one slide that tells them exactly what they're looking at. And until stories, which we're about to talk about, it was all stuck in PowerPoint. So how is it helping our customers, both internally and externally? The story I want to leave you with today, if you remember anything, is that the barrier to entry for every different persona type is decreasing with these generative BI capabilities. So first, for my team specifically, I author dashboards every single day. I teach my analysts how to author dashboards every single day. And curating the content has gotten faster since this generative BI went into preview earlier this year. Actually, a couple weeks ago, I took it on a test run and built a dashboard. You know, I know how to use QuickSight very well, but I used the generative BI authoring experience, and it decreased the amount of time I needed to make the dashboard by an entire day. Normally, it would take me 3 to build it, look it over, understand everything that's there, and this time it took me 2. So even saving 1 day can be powerful. For the stories experience, and you'll see my pipelines shifted a little bit on the right there of keeping insights inside of QuickSights, we're empowering our subject matter experts to be able to build and share compelling insights inside of QuickSight. So it's taking those dashboards that have 20 or so visuals, multiple tabs, lots of different information and filters, and boiling it down to 4 or 5 different text blocks that show the exact insights you see there as a human, as well as some next steps and so what's that we can take action on. So with that, I'm going to jump over to the demo. The computer locked, sorry.
Computer locked.
Perfect. So like Ed, I did record a video here, but I want to bring us back to what this data is. So first caveat, this was real data that I took and put in the Chicago market. So we are looking at actual claims that did occur for one of my clients, but we're looking at fake hospital names and fake cities. So if you scroll really hard there, you'll find like the Shedd Aquarium is one of the lat longs, obviously not a hospital. But the actual insights and concepts that we're seeing here are real data. This is one of those out-migration data sets like I was talking about before, and it takes all patients who live in, now Chicago, and finds out where they got care within a 3.5-year time frame. How much of it stayed in the market, how much of it left the market, what types of things left, all answers we're going to solve for. So I did build the full dashboard using Generative BI, but we'll walk through a couple of different visuals together. So the first question I might ask is out-migration going up or down? So trend of encounters in and out of market. Pretty simple question. It gives me a table back. I kind of want that to be a line graph, and we can see right off the bat that the trended line graph shows out-migration is increasing. It's that dark blue line there. So we want to kind of understand what is leading to that. Next question I might ask is encounters by latitude and longitude. Where are these patients going? What hospital systems? What cities outside of Chicago? I get very pointed here in TellQ. I want it as a points on a map graph and add that to my visual as well. If I change my mind after I've put the graph on the analysis, I can actually change the color here like Zach did in his demo and change it just to show the in and out of market. So those dark blues are still the out of market. And we can see if you're familiar with Chicago, patients are going to lots of different suburbs as well as up to Wisconsin and over to other cities in Illinois. Finally, my last question is, well, what are they leaving for? So I can ask Q encounters by service line, colored by out-migration as a stacked bar chart. Looking to see that ratio of how much is staying in versus out of market and add that to my analysis. So pretend we built 20 or so visuals here together, but we'll pop over to the reader view of this, and we've got a full dashboard now. So I'm going to shift personas a little bit to one of my coworkers, Hannah. Hannah is an analyst on my team. She works with this data every single day and talks to hospitals about the insights here. So Hannah would log into this dashboard and see right away, as a subject matter expert, that cardiology is in both of the top left boxes. It's a top service line. It's a top service line leaving the market. But what Hannah doesn't see is what types of cardiology. There could be a lot of different things leaving. Are they leaving for a heart transplant? That's very specific. Are they leaving for hypertension? That's something primary care-wise. So Hannah can ask you, what are the top cardiology sub-service lines going out of market? Again, pretty broad, wants to understand what the top things are leaving the market. Q populates for her both a list of all those sub-service lines, a visual of all of them as well, and we can see that it was hypertension, which is a primary care concern, and it gives her some of those did you mean questions, and here's what we pulled out as well. So Hannah feels pretty confident that she understands there's a data story here to tell her hospital client, so Hannah's going to build a data story about all the things going out of her market. We're going to click the scrollable page here, and again, give it a pretty general and generic prompt. Build me a story about why patients are going out of market for care. Pick relevant data showing what is driving their behavior, and explain where they are going and what types of services they might be seeking. Again, very, very general. We want to understand what the AI is showing us. I'm going to pause here for a second and point something out that I found really cool when I was doing the demo of this. But we're picking a bunch of visuals out of this exact dashboard that I am here. But you'll see, and it's blurred because it has all my client lists in it, you'll see the list on the left there has all the other dashboards that I, as the reader, have access to. So maybe I have access to 3 or 4 different dashboards. Maybe one of them's about cardiology itself. I can pull in visuals of relevant data from other areas of my QuickSight and pull that in here as well. But back to my reInvent demo. So Hannah picks in a bunch of these visuals, and it populates a story. As we saw in Zach's demo, you can change the style of it there. I like this one. It matches our themes in Huron. I can add my Emily Arevalo name there, and I can customize it to me. It gives you an introduction, scrolls through several of the different graphs that I chose, and then it shows you those top cities where patients are going out of market. And again, I want to pause here and highlight another thing that I found really cool and exciting. But this visual you'll see is a list of suburbs near Chicago, right? What you don't see is Chicago. But when we saw our map visual, there was a giant bubble for Chicago. So this visual is already pre-filtered in the dashboard. I filtered it when I was the author, and it keeps and sticks that filtering for the business user who is building the visual as well. And then finally, it gives you some insights, and the one I highlighted there is these cities likely attract patients due to their proximity. Patients are staying near the market. The biggest thing we saw in that reader experience was that they were leaving for hypertension, a primary care service, and these patients are kind of staying in market but having to drive to suburbs for care. So with that, I'll bring back up Ed and Zach. Thank you.
Nice job. Great talk.
Thank you.
Well done, Ed. All right. So we're just going to finish it up here. So we looked today at these 3 experiences that come with Amazon Q in QuickSight. This AI-powered dashboard authoring experience to enable business analysts to build dashboards faster. The AI answers to questions of data on demand for business users to get the insights they need in order to inform a decision, and the AI-assisted data storytelling, which enables business users to then share their findings with others in order to bring people on the same page in order to move a decision forward. We can share more, thank you, share more information with you on generativebi.com. If you'd like to know how to get all of these things, they are currently a public preview, which good news means that they are free for QuickSight Q subscribers. And if you don't already have QuickSight Q, you can subscribe to QuickSight Q as an add-on to QuickSight for a 30-day free trial. So you can try all of this stuff in QuickSight for free pretty soon. Right after the conference, if you choose to do so. And there are a number of other QuickSight sessions I'd like to point your attention to, just in case you have not already completely filled your schedule. And if you want to hear me give this talk again in a little while, but without my wonderful co-presenters, you can do so over in the Venetian. We have a community. QuickSight is a great community of people. It's more than a service. It's more than a product. It's the experience of working together to solve these data problems, and you can join. All you have to do is go up to the community, very friendly, very helpful, can answer questions, get you rolling. And you can connect to the three of us, please. This is just our LinkedIn, so feel free to take a quick snap if you want. And then on this next slide, of course, everybody, please fill in your surveys. We do listen and look at all of your comments, and they matter to us. Thank you for taking the time today. I know that you had many different options during this time period, and I'm flattered that you chose to spend your time with the three of us. We're going to stick around here and take questions for about 10 minutes.